Hello and welcome back to another Victoria 3 video. It's been a little while since we had a dev diary from Victoria 3. The Swedish team was on their summer holidays and now they're back and we have them again, and I'm very glad because I've kind of missed them, not gonna lie, I've very much missed them. First off though, we're going to have a look at the Twitter teaser from yesterday, and it's looking at the laws screen. So, here's a look at most of the different forms of distribution of power that a country can have, ranging from one man, one vote, to he is a man and he has the vote. So we've got autocracy, oligarchy, elder council, landed voting, wealth voting, census suffrage, and universal suffrage. And there was also a clarification on the forums, and that is that the percentage on non-active laws shows how much clout would approve of changing from the active law to the new law. So if we go back to here, we can see that if we were to change away from autocracy, there is no law that would be more clout approved than autocracy. The closest you'd get is landed voting, which has nobody saying no to it. But at the same time, it doesn't have as many people saying yes to it. Universal suffrage at 3.4%, and 51% of people don't want it. So there you go. So let us get into the actual dev diary, and we're going to be talking about laws. Also, this looks like a new thing, a new image. So let's have a look at that as well. Zoom out just a smudge. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. Holding back the kid who's got a knife. Oh, you love to see it. I love this artwork. I've no bad words to say about it. I'm very much a fan. I think it's looking like if it's not the French Revolution, more than likely, it's probably the revolutions of 1848, and that could be really anywhere. It could also be Maison is a French word. It may be the revolt in Haiti, though that happened before the date. Although I will say, from Paradox's point of view, they've been adding in all of these artworks a very diverse cast. They are not necessarily absolute history. They can be alt history. So this could be any number of revolts with you can't really say which one it is. I think it's something to do with the French though, because maison, even if it is the latter part of a word that's been scrubbed off, that screams French to me. But anyway, let's have a look at the laws. After a couple of weeks of vacation, we've returned to our usual weekly dev diary schedule. Today we'll be diving deeper into Victoria's politics to talk about laws. Legal reform in your country creates different political, economic, and social conditions for your pops, which over time changes the fabric of your society. This change can be slow or incremental, or as fast and revolutionary, sometimes literally. So, yeah, laws can change with revolution. That seems fairly reasonable. There are three main categories of laws, with 7 subcategories in each, which themselves contain up to half a dozen specific law options. As always, everything here is being heavily iterated on, including these subcategories, so the laws you see at release will not necessarily match what we're telling you here. So, we've got power structure. This is one of the 3 main categories. This is one of the 3 main ones. Okay. And there's 7 within it. Gotcha. So, power structure. These laws determine who is in control of different aspects of your country. It includes fundamental governance principles such as monarchy and parliamentary republic, which determine who your head of state is and what kind of powers they wield. Distribution of power ranges from autocracy and oligarchy through various extensions of the voting franchise all the way to universal suffrage, citizenship, and church and state laws. There's a full stop that I missed. Citizenship and church and state laws govern which pops suffer legal discrimination in your country due to their culture or religion. The principles on which your bureaucracy is run, such as hereditary or elected positions for bureaucrats, determine how expensive it is to keep track of each citizen and how much institutions cost to run, but they also directly benefit some groups over others. Conscription lets you raise a part of your civilian workforce as soldiers in times of war, although soldiers has been renamed, I think, to servicemen. And internal security governs how the Home Affairs anti-insurgent institution works. Just to go on to this idea of soldiers being renamed to servicemen. It's something that we saw in the 3-month or the 1-month recap thing. That was a video that Paradox put out. I did a video on a couple of days ago, and it showed that one of the pop types was called serviceman. Initially, I made a comment basically saying it's interesting that they're going to a gendered word rather than a gender-neutral word. I just thought it was interesting. Didn't really say it was a good or a bad thing, just thought it was interesting. But it was pointed out to me that that may end up meaning that you require servicemen, pops, to be in your navy. In Victoria 2, boats, ships, whatever you want to call them, big war vessels, did not require any pops to man them. There was no manpower requirement there. But I think the change of soldiers to servicemen could indicate that we will end up having pop requirements for certain ship types. Whether it's all ships require a certain number of pops in each of them, or whether it's, not that case. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, but I thought it was just worth pointing out. So, the power structure laws of a typical European nation after having made a few strides towards liberalisation. The numbers in green refer to the number of alternative laws currently available to be enacted. This indicator is used throughout the UI to reveal how many options a submenu has without having to open it, and we've seen this in the production methods thing as well. So, there are 2 optional laws for Parliamentary Republic, different types of the franchise, the voting franchise, there's 4 different ones of them that you could choose, etc., etc. So, power structure, we've got Parliamentary Republic, or we've got government principles, distribution of power, citizenship, church and state bureaucracy, conscription, and internal security. Lovely stuff. Alright, on to the economy. This set of laws defines where your treasury's money comes from and how it can be spent. Your economic system is crucial. This governs whether your country operates on principles of mercantilism, isolationism, or free trade, among others. Income tax determines which pops should be taxed and what range of tax burden is appropriate. No income tax at all is of course an option, and legislation to such an effect will make some pops both rich and happy. Poll taxation, or levying a fixed tax per head, is another option primarily used in less industrialized societies. There are other avenues of taxation as well, but those are ones driven by legislation. Finally, you can choose what form the institutions of colonization, policing, education systems, and healthcare systems will take in your country. For example, you can keep government spending under control by instituting charity hospitals, which have limited effect and boost the power of the clergy, or you could pass a public health insurance law, which is costlier but can have a greater impact on the health of the masses. Healthcare reforms were the most valuable ones in Victoria 2. It was always the ones that, like, if people are saying, which ones should you go for first, it's always healthcare, then it's always education second. So, it may be the same here. Healthcare means your pops don't die as much, so you have a higher population. And education means they're more educated, so you can get technology faster. I don't imagine it'll be exactly the same, but both those things I think are probably going to stay pretty important. So, payroll taxes require a reasonable lower class wages and centralized population to pay off, but if so, can form the economic basis for a budding welfare system as seen here. A tax system based on levying might be more lucrative in countries with huge peasant populations, like Russia, for example. So, the economy, we've got mercantilism as one of the things, payroll tax, no payroll tax, colonialization, policing, education system, healthcare. Lovely. No options for new healthcare options, so interesting stuff. Alright, onto human rights. Enshrining the rights of the individual was a hallmark of the era. These laws define how your pups are treated and what manner of control you can enforce over their lives. Free speech determines the degree of control you can enforce over your interest groups, but restrictive rights throttle the spread of innovation. The labour rights laws, including outlawing serfdom, but extends all the way to establishing a workplace safety institution to reduce the number of people literally crushed in the jaws of industry. Children's rights and the rights of women have a number of effects such as shifting the workforce and dependent demographics, affecting dependent income, and extending the franchise. Welfare ensures the poor and disabled in your society are taken care of. Migration laws can be used to influence pop migration. Slavery laws determine the legal status of owning people in your country, and more details on that subject in a future dev diary. Hopefully, and now this is going to sound really, really terrible and stuff, In Victoria 2, slavery was something you did not want at all, under any circumstances. Slaves were basically tax dodgers. They worked, but they didn't give you any money because there's no taxes levied upon them. So, it was always worth every single time. There was there wasn't a single time where there was a difference here, but it was always worth outlawing slavery, with no exceptions. I hope that is not the case, and I know that sounds fucking whack, but hear me out here. There is a reason that many states instituted slavery. Some of them were economic reasons, and I think those should be modeled, even if it's kind of abhorrent. Just having it be a no-brainer, well, let's just get rid of slavery every single time, having options and having the choice to be the bad guy should be something you can do. So hopefully it is not just an objectively good thing to outlaw slavery. Again, it sounds stupid and whack and stuff, but there should be advantages to having slavery enabled for certain people, for certain pop types, for certain countries, for certain economic systems. It should be a benefit to keep slaves. And then, as history has proven, holding slaves is not economically sound in the long term. Hopefully that is also modeled as well. Getting rid of slavery should be a good thing as well, economically and also, socially. So I think both should be possible, and you shouldn't be forced into, emancipation. You shouldn't be forced into it. That's what I'm basically trying to say. So, not a lot of concessions have been made here, but at least the children may congregate freely out of the factory while whistle sounds the end of their grueling workday. So, slavery is banned, at least here, in whatever country this is, the right of assembly. Serfdom has been abolished. Child labor is allowed, and we cannot change that. Women are basically owned by their fathers or their husbands with legal guardianship. There is no social security. If you are out of a job, you have no money and the state won't provide for you. And there are no migration controls. So, yeah, anyone can come in, anyone can leave, I guess. And I assume the two here is encouraging migration and encouraging emigration, possibly. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would encourage emigration. But, yeah, maybe. We'll see. Laws are almost always completely independent from one another. You can create a constitutional monarchy with hereditary succession but universal suffrage, or an autocratic presidential republic with strongman leader at the top of the food chain. You can have a secret police and still permit fully protected speech. Our aim is to set up all countries with the best fitting laws compared to what they actually had in 1836. This will vary wildly between countries and will be greatly influence what sorts of conditions and strategies are available to you at the start of the game. For example, the USA starts with total separation of church and state, ensuring no pops suffer legal discrimination on account of their religion, while Sardinia-Piedmont doesn't take kindly to non-Catholic pops. This will affect pops who live in the country currently, but also limit which pops might migrate there. Few pops would make it their preference to move to a country where they're mistreated by law. The USA is a very strange example there. Because, yeah, the law says there's a total separation of church and state. But actually looking at the country shows that that's not the case. So that's an interesting one. Is there going to be discrimination on the basis of religion, even if you have total separation of church and state and all of your laws are towards, all religions are welcome? Is there still going to be state-based discrimination as is seen in the USA? As is seen in the USA to this very day? Maybe? Who knows? But it's an interesting example to choose there. As a result of these starting laws, Sardinia-Piedmont might have to look towards colonialization or conquest if they start to run out of their native workforce, while North America is likely to get regular migration waves to help expand the frontier. By connecting these effects to starting laws, many historically appropriate and recognizable aspects and behaviors of Victorian-era nations, such as their attractiveness to immigrants, are connected to a tangible property. For example, poor or oppressed pops emigrating to the USA both because of its demand for workforce and also its liberal laws, rather than being arbitrarily encoded into the very fabric of the nation itself. The approach various Victoria games took to encourage history in the familiar direction. Okay, I like that. That seems good. Doing it naturally rather than, we're just gonna modifier for USA, they get pops, they get immigrants because game says so. Having it be natural and a product of the laws you have in the country is a great thing, because that means that if you are playing as, say, Mexico, and you liberalize and you have available jobs, and your country's, economically sound, you're going to encourage waves of immigration. And if the USA decides, you know what, all of these things that we've done to make our country attractive to come to, we're going to throw it all in the bin and we're going to sort of act like modern USA, then your country isn't going to be very attractive to move to. So yeah, I can see that being a very good thing, that it's based on tangible things rather than modifiers, or rather than the code saying so. That's great. So, a common effect of laws is to modify some parameter about your country, like give you more authority or reduce certain pops' mortality. But laws can also permit or disallow the use of certain actions, such as public schools, which permit the compulsory primary school law, to permit the decree to promote social mobility in a certain state, and even alter the effects of other parts of your society, like boost the efficacy of your education system institution. Without some degree of separation between church and state, this form of secular school system is not possible. Okay, so we've got public schools here. 19% of the clout in a country is in favor, mostly through industrialists. What is that one? Learning, these are the intellectuals, these are the industrialists, these are the church, basically the faithful, the church. I can't remember, like, engineers, but it's not a pop type. It's the word escapes me. Interest group. Yeah, I can't remember what that one is. These symbols, right now, they're not coming to my mind immediately, but I imagine that once you play enough, they'll just be second nature. It's just not there right now, of course. Okay. So if you have public schools, it unlocks the law education institution. That's really cool. That's really cool. Having one thing affect the other, you can't have this unless you have this. Yeah, no, I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, totally cool. That's awesome. Another reason to change laws is because your people demand it. As we touched on in the previous Dev Diary, interest groups have ideologies that lead them to favour some laws over others. For example, the industrialists have the individualist ideology that caused them to favour privately operated education and healthcare systems over publicly funded ones, to ensure the best access is given to those of merit and morals, or in other words, wealth. Reforming your current laws to work more in accordance with your powerful interest group's ideologies is a quick way to win their approval, permitting you more leeway to go against their wishes in the future, or as a quick pick-me-up in case their standard of living has recently taken a hit. The inverse is also true. Introduce a bill to abolish the monarchy in Great Britain and see how the landed gentry feel about that. No, I don't think I will. Even trade unionists have a hard time saying no to zero income taxes, but even that won't make up for restricting the vote. So trade unions' approval is due to a bunch of different things. It is currently at +1. They disapprove of no social security. They disapprove of of child labour being allowed. They approve of the right of assembly. They disapprove of no health care. Approve of public schools. They disapprove of per capita tax. They strongly approve of not being taxed. Alright. But they also disapprove of the recent change from census suffrage to landed voting. I wonder if this is a temporary modifier. Probably is, because it says a recent change here. Alright. I I think this is another screen that Agamade is going to rework. I don't think it's necessary to have trade unions all the way over here. Like, we know it's trade unions because it's a tooltip after we've hovered over the approval rating for trade unions. I think it's, honestly, it's just kind of necessary. The things that are necessary here, like, you don't need approval. All you need really is presidential republic +1, no income tax +2, per capita tax -1, public schools +1, no healthcare system That's all you need, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of this is actually super necessary. Honestly, it's a bit more like clutter. Having these words be, aligned, great. I think the same thing should be for these words and also these numbers. And I know that's going to be difficult, but if you shuffle things around a bit, you don't need these words. You see that with this. You see that with the numbers. So it's not necessary, and it's just a little bit of clutter, and it's harder to read at a glance. But yeah, that's my minor nitpick. Enacting a law is far from an instantaneous one-click affair. First off, any reform must be supported by at least one interest group in your government who can champion the change. Once a reform has begun, it can be a smooth process that's over in a matter of months, or it can take years of grueling debate in Parliament or horse trading between interest groups in order to pass. The amount of time it takes depends both on your government's legitimacy in the eyes of the people and also on the clout of the interest groups in your government that support and oppose the new law relative to the one it's replacing. While broader coalitions of interest groups in government give you more options of laws to enact, it also complicates getting them passed. Okay, that's great. That's much better than, I can do it, click, it's done. Like, that's balls, that sucks. This is interesting. It's going to be annoying when you can't get something passed that you really want, but it is certainly more interesting. Changing your laws isn't an entirely straightforward process in Victoria 3. In this case, it's just a matter of time before the law is enacted, but if dissenting interest groups had also been a part of this government, there'll be plenty of room for debate and stalling tactics that could cause this reform to take more effort than it's worth. And we've got reform underway, oligarchy to landed voting, so changing the franchise. I can't make this any bigger, unfortunately. So 43% are in favour, 13% are out of favour or disfavouring it. Okay. There's no debate, there's no stalling percentage, so it's going to go through. Yeah, that's cool. I like it. Let me close out here by tying this all back to POPs, as everything should be. As we've touched on in past dev diaries, POPs have a profession, collect an income, and consume goods depending on the economic preconditions you've created in your country. These material concerns, in combination with a few others, such as literacy, determine which interest groups they support. Other aspects, such as your country's laws, influence how much political strength the POPs provide to those interest groups. The interest group have an approval score and favour certain laws over others. As a result, different groups of POPs approve more or less of the society you've built depending on their economic well-being, and their demands for change is more or less intimidating depending on how many and strong they are. You may choose to placate an angry group, or further benefit an already content group for extra benefits, but in doing so, some other group will become displeased. Have you built your society resilient enough to navigate these ebbs and flows, and most importantly, which of the many, many routes will you take to move forward? That's all for this week. The Dev Diary mentioned institutions a fair number of times, and next week we'll be back with more details on powerful society-shaping tools. Until then, lovely stuff. Yeah, no, I'm down for this. The laws look robust, they look interesting, and I really have nothing to complain about with them. Other than, minor UI things that can and probably will be changed. I think this is a massive step up from the equivalent in Victoria 2. It just is. I don't think the strongest of naysayers, the strongest of doomers, can't really argue that this isn't better than Victoria 2's system. Because Victoria 2's system was, if you had a certain amount of militancy, that would encourage your upper house to favour change, and then you could choose a change. And you could choose one, and then you couldn't do one for another while. And it was one-click system, and that was kind of it. I don't think you can argue that that's a better system than this. I really don't. I think this is fantastic. And yeah, looking forward to checking it out and using it. As I am recording this, or when I first open this, well, the video's been going on for 24 minutes. This was posted 28 minutes ago, so I got onto this pretty quickly, and there probably haven't been any dev comments yet. But what I will be doing is going over some dev comments later in the week, so stick around for those. But until then, I would like to know your thoughts on the laws system. Do you play Victoria 2? Do you understand the law system and how that works in there, the reforms? Do you think this is better? Are you looking forward to this? Let me know in the comment section below. And until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this dev diary and my comments on it, and I will see you later in the week for the dev comments, if there is any, which there probably will be, because there always are. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.